Hello and good evening, everybody, to our Green Pass Gaming weekly Sunday podcast. I am Pux, as you can probably tell. Flap is not here today because he is away working, not at home, I suppose, until later this week, so he is unfortunately not here. And because of that, as our main driver of OBS, he has also taken that power away from us. So as you eagle-eyed amongst you may have seen that we are now using StreamYard again, and this is a one-off until we have Flap back, so he can help us back in the driving seat to run OBS. But apart from that, hello everybody. Hope we're all doing well. I shall go through the panel, go through the topics, and then we'll start from there. So I'll go down as you can see it on the screen. So Luke, good evening. How are you doing?
Evening. Yes, I'm very well, thank you. It's been a week, an intense one for me, but it's light at the end of the tunnel, which is good, and we're really ramping up to E3 now, which is awesome. Really awesome, so I really can't wait for that, and we got some great topics today, so I'm looking forward to discussing.
Yeah, definitely. Really looking forward to tonight. And next on the list, Scott, SX2. Good evening. How are you doing?
Evening, Pux. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. Had a busy weekend. Similar to Luke, I've had a pretty hectic week at work to say the least. So I'm not looking forward to tomorrow. Obviously, last week we had a nice public holiday on the Monday to look forward to. No such luck this week, but really looking forward to the short night as always. And yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. And last but definitely not least, we have a special guest with us on tonight. Last minute, as I recall, as Indy's just told us. But good evening to you, Indie Gamer. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you very much, my friend. Great to be on with all of you guys. You know how much I love you, and usually you're coming on my show quite often, and I love hanging out with you. So I thought it'd be cool to come on and join you today. I did, as I told you before we kicked off, I did kind of force Flap to invite me today because I was up for talking some gaming goodness, as it's a very exciting time. I was just up for some, more chatting and enjoying of the E3 run up to that, and so yeah, I'm just grateful to be here. Thank you so much for having me, buddy.
Definitely, no, it's fantastic to have you here. Always love having you on our show. So, topics for tonight then, as you may have seen on the thumbnail. But first off, we're going to be doing an E3 retrospective. So, we're kind of going to be going through the panel and seeing and discussing what our favourite E3 moments of yesteryears was. And then after that, we're going to be doing some PlayStation/Sony discussions and talking about the Sony PlayStation cross-gen policy, because that seems to be having a bit of a U-turn as of late, with some more recently announced titles becoming cross-gen. And after that, we're going to be discussing Nintendo's E3, because there's a lot of Nintendo fans out there on the panel and in the chat, and they've been a bit of a mystery, quite a recluse as of late. So we're going to be talking about our expectations, things we'd like to see, our hopes, and see what comes out of that one. And if we have any time, we'll be doing some almost miscellaneous E3 conference discussions. So almost talking about our expectations or hopes again for not just Nintendo that time, but for all of the other shows going forward, such as the Square Enix or the 2K or a few other ones which are going to be happening. So without further ado, we'll jump straight into it. So, we're beginning with topic 1, so our E3 retrospective. I'm actually going to start going down the list first. So, Luke, if you don't mind, if I start with yourself, are there any particular E3 moments of yesteryears that have particularly stood out to you? Any funny memories that you have of past E3s, or maybe some or old news from previous E3s that you maybe hope to see this year?
Yeah, there's so many. I have a load of really memorable E3 moments that I still kind of on every E3 cycle I always think about. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you always kind of sometimes you hope that sort of thing will happen again, or sometimes you kind of hope it doesn't. Depends on the memory. The one that I always remember the most, I think, is probably Sony's E3 2015, which was the conference, the fabled conference dream, where we revealed Last Guardian after however many years of being completely absent. Announced Final Fantasy VII remake, or Square Enix did. And also there was the Kickstarter launch for Shenmue 3, which also came out of absolutely nowhere. I think in addition to that, they revealed Horizon Zero Dawn for the first time, and they had the Fable Uncharted 4 demo, where they sort of glitched out at the beginning, and they had the issues with it. So I remember that, and it's not because it's a it's not anything particularly PlayStation related because apart from I guess The Last Guardian, but it was just I was super looking forward to that game. I really did think it was dead, completely dead. So when it was re-revealed, I was delighted. And Final Fantasy VII Remake had been requested for so many years from Square Enix. It was such a kind of hot button game that was never forthcoming, and people really thought that they just weren't going to do it. And then Shenmue 3, and I wasn't, I enjoyed the first two Shenmues a lot, but again, everybody thought there's no way they're going to make another. It's been too long, and they all coalesced at the same time. So that's the one I always remember extremely fondly, because it was kind of the coalescence of that kind of E3 moment, but multiple times, where you kind of you're taken away and you get really excited over this stuff, and it makes you remember your passion for a lot of games and a lot of franchises out there. So that's the one that always sticks in my memory.
Yeah, that's really cool. So definitely going back a bit there, especially what you said about Final Fantasy VII Remake. God, I remember seeing rumours about that for years, and then year after year, nothing coming out of it. And then obviously we finally saw what was as it is now, and I think everyone was just completely blown away, right? I think it got one of the biggest receptions of E3 that year, wasn't it? Was that 2019?
Yeah. The
reveal for Final Fantasy VII, when that was first come out. When was that? Do you remember?
2015.
2015. When they first announced it, it was 2015 at Sony's conference. I think when they revealed the proper gameplay trailer, when was it, Scott? It's a couple of years later, right? It might be not even that.
Because it was originally being developed by CyberConnect, wasn't it? The guys that generally do the anime games. So when it was announced, they didn't. We're talking 6 years. You say we're talking some time back there, Pucks. I'm going to have a couple that's going to take even further back than that by some margin. To be fair, but even then, that's a bit fuzzy. But I don't think they really showed anything beyond the announcement, did they?
No, when they announced it, they showed a CG trailer. It was a pure CG trailer. In Midgar, pans down to Cloud and Barrett, and that was it basically. It was quite a good trailer, and then, as you say, Scott, I think they then showed it maybe a year later, gameplay wise. That was the CyberConnect version. Yeah, and then it went dark for ages as they took over development in house, got rid of CyberConnect, and started rebuilding it on UE4, I think. So, I can't remember when the actual the big re-reveal was.
Probably 2019. I think it's probably right.
Yeah. So that rumbled on for a while.
Yeah, it's wild how different that game could have been, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
You think of this game that was released to sort of critical acclaim just last year, but it obviously it took 5 years to get there from just the announcement and the restart of development. So it could have been massively different.
Yeah, that's quite crazy to think about. Even speaking of Final Fantasy VII, not to maybe one of my moments, just to quickly interrupt the flow of the list, but speaking of Final Fantasy VII again, I remember seeing the reveal finally for when Kingdom Hearts 3 was first revealed as well. Yeah. Massive fan of that series. I played pretty much all of the different games on all the different platforms as much as I could, but there was never the final in the trilogy, and then finally that was revealed, and I was absolutely blown away when I first saw it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And then I think that was similar to Final Fantasy VII, I believe. It kind of went dark because the game was being rebuilt from the in-house engine to UE4 as well. And that took a long time. And then eventually in 2019 it came out. But I really loved that moment for me personally. But I'm going to stop myself for now and go over to you, Scott. Any particular E3 moments that you that really stand out to you? You just kind of gave us a quick insight that you're going to take us right back.
Yeah, so let's go back a little further for me, mate. So 2015 for Luke there. I'm going to take you all the way back to 2003.
Wow. Okay.
I'll tell you about that far. So can anyone hazard a guess at what around 2003 might have been?
The invention of gaming, was it?
Pong 2, maybe? I'm not sure.
So it would actually be the Halo 2 gameplay trailer that they showed, which at the time was fantastic. And actually it actually gets more interesting the more you read about that particular demo as well, because it was essentially stuck together with duct tape from what I've read. But obviously, he's a big fan of Halo, and like Halo 2, I guess Halo 2 and 3 were sort of peak Halo, but there was just this massive event around it, and they showed off this demo that, like, if you compare that Halo 2 demo to Halo 1, it was like 2 generations apart. It was ridiculous, the difference. And that was obviously because they couldn't actually do that particular game on the OG Xbox hardware. But it just, as a massive Halo fan, it was such a big moment, and it kind of revealed just little things like the dual wielding. It introduced the battle rifle, which has obviously become a staple of Halo, and the sort of the graphics at the time as well. I mean, if you look back now, they don't look great, but the graphics at the time on that particular demo were fantastic. And yeah, that was kind of peak E3 for me, because 2003 I would have been like 14, 15 around then. So, I was super excited at the time. And I can't remember where I watched that, but that was back in the days where I remember paying GameSpot. I think it was GameSpot. I used to pay GameSpot like $5 a month or something to get access to their E3 coverage. Obviously, we've come a long way since then. But yeah, that's so I'm super excited, staying up late for it. But yeah, the Halo 2 demo was awesome. And if you're a fan of Halo and you haven't seen that demo, I would highly recommend that you check it out. It'll be on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely make sure to be checking that out. Any other particular moments, or shall I move on to Indy?
Let's hear Indy. That's it. Because I kind of picked one good, and I try to pick one sort of good that's bad, if that makes sense. So let's hear from Indy first.
Come on, Indy. What E3 moments do you have for us that you remember particularly well?
These guys are like rocking it big time. I'm going to make me look really bad, but I mean, they're going for these momentous occasions where it's like changed the course of gaming forever. but mine, you can probably expect mine are going to be a bit more slightly different. I just my feelings about E3 and obviously my love for indies in general is just seeing those small games on the main stage and stuff like that. So I may as well kick off with a one game which is still in development, unfortunately, but I just thought it looked so epic that it took over. Even like AAA fans were loving it. Everyone was loving it. It was back in 2017. I'm wondering if you might be guessing so far. It was a very interesting looking cyberpunk game that we still don't have. As I say, there's much hype for it. It's gone a little bit quiet, but it's still being developed. And that is The Last Night.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's wild. Did you see that was 2017, Indy?
It is, yeah, that's right. It's 2017, yeah. So it's been a little while, but yeah, I just as you would probably expect, I would go down this route. But I just love seeing those small games on the big stage. It brings them into the forefront. It gets them into a different sort of people's perspectives, and it just gives them that chance to shine, which I absolutely love. And I really dig what The Last Night looks like. And I would absolutely love its comeback this year or sometime whenever it does come back. It will come back because it's being developed and all that still, and it's being worked on, and they are progressing, but it's just a very ambitious project, so it takes time to make perfection and all that. But yeah, that's one of mine. Maybe do you want me to give like one or two more sort of additions, but are we gonna go ahead. Yeah, I mean, I'll give you one which isn't an indie then, for this is not exactly my memory isn't quite as good as you guys, I would say, but it's a more recent thing, but it was actually it was not a game I was necessarily that hyped for, but it was just the way it was done. It's one of those one more thing situations, and it was the Cyberpunk reveal when it was right at the end of the Xbox conference, and they kind of thought everything was over. Then it glitched out. I just thought they did it really well. What I mean?
That was the initial one, wasn't it? When Phil Spencer was doing his outro, and then it was like he kind of got hacked.
Exactly. Cut him off. That was the initial, wasn't it? That's right. Yeah, a lot of people probably just forget about that, and all they think about is Keanu Reeves kind of going out. We've got
a few comments about that as well.
Yeah, so. I just thought I'd avoid that because everyone's probably going to think that. It's funny that one's so popular, and it's not even kind of a game. It's almost about him, isn't it? Which I love that moment. Though, believe me, it's a fantastic moment bringing him on and everything. But yeah, I'd like like the glitch moment actually. I know one more things are quite popular in general, like Indie World do them and all that stuff. A lot of people do them, but they did it really well, and it was quite unexpected. I really like the glitch factor playing into the sort of format of the game and stuff like that. And yeah, that's one of my other ones. Like I say, not necessarily for the game, but for the way they did it. I thought it was nicely done.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I say, speaking of taking people back, I can't say I'm going to take people back any further than Scott, I'm afraid. But one particular one I do have, actually, and I've just kind of thought of it as you guys have been talking. I think the Assassin's Creed 2 gameplay footage that we got shown for the first time ever after the wild success of the first game. It must have been, I don't know, maybe 2007, 2008 E3. And then I think the moment when you've got a guy commentating, but he's also playing the game as well. And I think you've got Ezio on the rooftop somewhere, and there's two guards side by side. And then for the first time, when we see the dual hidden blades and taking them out in one instantaneous hit, like I remember hearing the whole crowd just kind of do their big whoa kind of thing. Like it sounds mad thinking back now, like it's only an extra weapon, right? But
it's awesome though, isn't it? That is the ultimate weapon for that game for sure. Like that's what I loved Assassin's Creed so much back then. Like I think it was the Assassin's Creed 1. Was it Assassin's Creed 1 where they had that awesome looking trailer and the crow was the raven or the crow was in it? Do you remember that, guys?
Yes, I believe it was, because that's when they had the cross. You had the crossbow in the CGI, I believe, but then there was no crossbow in the actual game. If that's the right one, I'm remembering.
Yeah, it's got like a top-down view, and then there's like red. Lots of people wearing these red outfits. Is that the first game? Do you know the one I mean?
Oh, it's either the first game, or you might be talking about the Brotherhood trailer.
I might have got mixed up with that one actually, potentially. But they always do them trailers so well, I find. And even though they're CGI, they're just awesome. But
really draw you in, don't they? Just get excited about
exactly.
something.
Definitely.
They're almost like short films. I remember the Assassin's Creed 3 CGI trailer they showed as well before any gameplay. When you've got is it Connor? Is it the main guy when he's kind of running towards the British soldiers and stuff, and he's throwing a tomahawk and he's doing flips and all sorts of stuff. And everyone's just in amazement of it. Yeah. And then you play the game and it got mixed reception, unfortunately. But I think some of my other moments outside of that are mostly actually Nintendo related. Like I remember all of the hype in magazines and stuff regarding the Nintendo Revolution, as it was originally called, and then people wondering what its final name was going to be. And then I believe, I can't remember who was actually on stage at the time, Satoru Iwata, I believe, he actually pulled like the Wii out of his jacket pocket or something and then held it up into the air for the crowd to see. And then they revealed the name, and obviously we all kind of know how that made into the news and stuff about how ridiculous it sounded, but then it became a household name, which I thought was pretty cool. I think also, speaking of Wii, we must all remember this, the number of the live on-stage demos that Nintendo did. Regarding the Wii and the remote, do we remember these?
Yeah. Which year was when they did that? Was it Wii Music? And they start the show with like the Wii Orchestra, and everyone's just like, "What the fuck's going on?"
It was 2008. The Wii Music one.
That's not even that long ago. It seems quite recent almost.
That whole show was terrible, absolutely terrible. It was one of the worst that Nintendo have ever done. Because it was literally them going, you know what, we're just gonna do an E3 for casual people, just like every game. Like I think I can't remember, there was a Zelda there actually. I remember must have been Twilight Princess, I suppose, and that was the only kind of hardcore game that they showed. Everything else was Wii Music and Just Dance and Disney games. It was just ridiculous.
And you remember watching people like pretending to do the drums in the background, but then the Mii's just aren't in sync or anything at all. You're just kind of watching people pretend to copy the screen. As you say, you almost have to put your hand in your mouth, just thinking, "Oh, this is a bit awkward, isn't it?"
Yeah,
it is funny that they go down.
Sorry, go on.
So I was just saying, it's funny they go down that sort of appeal to the mass or like casual audience. Then, do you think casuals actually watch E3 or
no?
No, exactly.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd read about, maybe you'd see it afterwards, but like in sort of my group of friends, there's obviously like a hardcore, if you will, sort of section of the start, like where we'll be watching the conferences, but then there's others that'll maybe just say like, oh, Scott, what was announced, and like what they'll be interested in is like, was Call of Duty there? Like, not
just get an advert after EastEnders for that
game. I think, another again similar to the Wii as well. I remember when they actually showed off Skyward Sword, and they did the live demo of the whole Wii Motion Plus. This is his new accessory coming out, and then I can't remember. I mean, I think their official response to like the janky looking controls was that they were too far away from the system, so it wasn't picking it up properly or something. But they're trying to show off like the 1-to-1 sword combat, and it just did not go well at all. Like where he was swinging, the character was doing something else, and again, you put your hand in your head and just think, "Oh no, like this is not good for such a massive IP."
Yeah, I think those give you some of the best moments, though. Kind of like the fails, like the gameplay fails. Like what's the big one that springs? Was there a really big Uncharted sort of where the game stopped working or something?
That was Uncharted. Was that Uncharted 4? Was it the reveal for that?
They actually had two moments like that on separate demos, although one was bigger than the other. There was the one in the jungle, which I think was the first gameplay reveal. I don't know if it was an E3, it might have been a PSX, where they accidentally fell down one of the ravines, which just broke the immersion of the demo. And then there was, I think the 2015 one was the one where, so the demo starts, they have the cutscene, and then it just goes to, where the player's in control of Drake, but he just stands there for about 25 seconds. And they had to like boot up a secondary, I think the controller died or something like that, and then the game glitched out. So they had to boot up another system apparently that was next to it to continue the demo because they have a backup. So
those are some of the best
goes on.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember.
Profit up.
Yeah, if you remember when Xbox first announced that they were acquiring Bethesda, and Major Nelson had a podcast with Phil Spencer, Pete Hines, and Todd Howard, and I think they spoke about how they set up at one of the original Xbox conferences at E3, and I think if I remember rightly, they basically had two people playing the same segment of the game at the same time. So basically, they could just cut one feed and switch to the other feed. And they were playing the same game, the same part of the game. If I remember correctly, chat, please correct me if I'm wrong if you remember that. Clever. So I think they had to cut as well, but so he had to still pretend he was playing the game because it was a live demo and he was holding the controller. But I think Pete was backstage actually playing what ended up having being shown on the actual show. So yeah, those sorts of things must give those guys massive headaches.
So was that like a backup? Sorry, was that all? He was doing it as a backup in case they lost the feed or something?
Yeah, just in case it went dead. So basically, they were just making sure that
you got
it obviously wouldn't have been the first time.
Just imagine the stress of standing on the stage, kind of like thousands and millions of people online watching you, and you've got to stand there pretending that you're the one playing. Every little mistake you've got to take the fall for.
Imagine if your batteries ran out, you're on stage or something like. Only Duracells by any chance.
And I think, speaking of, I call it favourite moments, but I got in my notes here about the Konami E3 conundrum that we had, I believe, in 2010 or 2011. Would we like to go into detail into that one?
Where do you start with that one?
I know, it's just it's impossible to almost pass that conference to this day. I actually rewatch. As a recommendation, I highly suggest people go and watch Digital Foundry because they actually do a watch through of the Konami E3 2010 conference. Where they commentate over it. They also do the infamous PlayStation 3 conference as well. But if you go back and watch it, it's just the most bizarre show that you'll ever see. Just like, a mix of totally random games that you wouldn't expect to be up on stage, and then allied with that, just people who clearly weren't prepped to go on stage properly, and then these just like weird moments. I mean, the Tak Fuji stuff with 99 Nights 2 is just hilarious. It's just absolutely hilarious, and it was just all unscripted. And then I remember they had the wrestlers on stage as well that had like a fight.
Oh my god!
So there was like a Mexican wrestling game that Konami were publishing, and they come on stage and have a fight. There was the infamous dancing segment. I can't remember what the dance game was called, but two of the developers were just on stage dancing to it. It was incredible.
That would be Dance Revolution or something.
I think
the DDR games were published by Konami, weren't they? So if honestly, if you haven't seen that conference, Like, look it up on YouTube. Don't look for the highlights, though. Just watch the whole thing if you can, because, like, you need to see the whole thing to truly appreciate what a train wreck that thing was. So
I actually caught up on some of it earlier this afternoon as well, and I think there's one part after the weird dancing part, as you just mentioned. I think some other guy comes out, really awkward silence. He doesn't really say anything for a while, says some words, and if to say, right, let's start the trailer, and then like kind of tell he's looking to the side, and then there's no trailer playing, and the lights are still on him, and he's just like, guys, please play the trailer. And then he kind of like slowly scampers off, and it's just so bizarre.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I think speaking of awkward ones, the other one that really stands out to me is the infamous PlayStation 3 conference that I'm sure everybody remembers. To this day, I cannot get the sound of Kaz Harain, and I think Flapstussions as well. Was it Kaz or was it the developer who shouted? Who was talking? Oh no, would have been the developer. I can't remember who it was. Was talking about the giant enemy crab and how you got to. You got to hit the weak spot for massive damage. But the best thing about that was, I think before they went into that, they were talking about how the game was kind of like authentic Japanese history. And then they brought out this giant enemy crab.
No, go on. Sorry, Scott.
No, you hear me. I don't think I told myself. Honestly, I think of that and I just can't contain myself.
No, it was... it was what was the game called? It was called Genji Days of the Blade or something like that. But yeah, it wasn't just the ridiculousness of them saying, "Oh, this is like kind of authentic," or we're trying to be authentic to Japanese history, and then the giant enemy crowd. Because in the same presentation, that would be weird anyway. It was the fact that they said that, and then they literally followed it on with verbatim. So here's this giant enemy crab as it like comes on screen, and it was just, it wasn't Konami levels of ridiculousness that conference, but it was getting there, like it was getting to that point. This is the Ridge Racer stuff.
Ridge Racer and kind of how that fell flat. And I think that was the same conference that they announced the pricing of the PlayStation 3 as well, which obviously was the whole $599 quote that people will remember or will have seen. So I can't think in recent memory of a conference where Sony have dropped the ball quite as much as
that was after we'd already known the Xbox cost, wasn't it? So that just kind of threw the blow even more, right?
Yeah, that one always stands out though. Like just Kaz shouting "Ridge Racer" and giant enemy crab, and talking about hitting it on its weak spot for massive damage. And things like that. Like honestly, I just can't. I mean, that was 2006. So we're talking 15 years ago now, and still I just can't get
stuck
those,
in your head, etched into your brain.
Clips out of my head. Yeah.
So has there been many other blunders since then? Like, because again, the Konami one I believe was 2011, right? But was there any big blunders more recently, or do you think they've all kind of maybe learned their lessons now?
Well, I guess the biggest blunder, especially on the Xbox side as well, is probably the sort of Xbox One reveal conference type thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because that's where, if you remember Don Matrick's infamous, well, if you don't have the internet, we've got a console for you. It's the Xbox 360. If you remember the interview with Keighley, and that was a bit of a train wreck, because that was the one that you'll see meme to death now about TV, and things like that. That's probably one of the worst in recent memories, unfortunately, for Microsoft. So.
Yeah, very bad shout that was going down that route.
Yeah.
Never live it down.
Oh, that's crazy. So quite a lot of V3 favourites there. Have we got any comments at all regarding this? I know I've seen a few little pop-ups. Whoever's been keeping track, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple. I think Luke's grabbed one as well, so I'll just go through quickly some of them that I've got. So obviously we talked about Cyberpunk. So Pyromat's is "You're Breathtaking" from. I mean, that was just such a a genuine moment, wasn't it? Because it was obviously unscripted, and Keanu Reeves is obviously just a pretty cool guy all around. So that was cool. And Ballman Gamer says Keanu Reeves coming out on the Xbox stage was awesome. Pyromat again says Final Fantasy VII is the only game where the opening, the train station, has been rendered for all available. Available on all 5 gens of PlayStation. So apparently it was a tech demo for PS2, 3, and 4 as well. Ballman Gamer says Nintendo could walk out on stage and say we are not releasing any games for the next year, but we will re-release all games from the Wii, and all fans will be fine with that. And you know what it is? I completely agree that would be the case. Nintendo don't have to do much, I don't think. Ballman Gamer again says, I still remember back at E3 2000, so 2000, that's going back some time.
Wow.
When they revealed and demoed 10 minutes of Metal Gear Solid 2, my jaw dropped. I think that's going beyond what I can remember, unfortunately, BMG, mate. Paramat says, so speaking about the Uncharted, Luke, you mentioned the sort of character just standing still for a bit. Apparently that became a trophy on PlayStation called Technical Difficulties. So if you did nothing in the game for a couple of minutes, that would prompt the trophy, which I like it when developers sort of lean into that sort of thing, which is cool. Cool. And then we mentioned earlier, so Flap Chips in there saying Kaz Harai saying Ridge Racer for PS3. No one cared about Ridge Racer, so yeah. And I think Luke, you had one comment as well, didn't you, mate?
Yeah, so Ballman Gamer again also said E3 2001 when Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was revealed, and it's still awesome and one of the best Star Wars stories today, which if anyone disagrees with that, they can leave because it's 100% truth. On BMG, the E3 2000 Metal Gear Solid 2 demo was the first E3 I ever watched. I mean, I was only 10. Wow. But I still remember it. I remember it for that reason, and just thinking actually that it was some sort of film or movie, and I couldn't believe it was a game. It was awesome.
How did you watch that then, Luke? Out of interest, because obviously that was like
it was 2000, yeah, and actually it was a behind closed. I think Konami did that conference. It might have been behind closed doors. There certainly wasn't a live thing. I remember how I watched it because there was a torrent for it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So and
LimeWire.
it was like Kazaa or something like that. I remember. And you could download the full demonstration. I think afterwards they may have released the full demo as well, like on some press got a hold of it or something like that. It was so long ago I can't remember, but I do remember seeing it. It was very amazing.
I can safely say I've never had a torrent in E3 conference that I can remember anyway. So that's going back. Obviously, that's long before the days of 4K streaming on YouTube and things like that. So,
God, before even YouTube existed as well. I mean, think of that. I can't picture a world without YouTube, can we? That's mad. Anyway, no, thanks for that, guys, and thank you, chat, as well, for being here. So we've got Boardman Gamer, Stubbs Gaming, Cyber Hunter, Invader Gaming, Fugly, quite a few people at Fastbacks in the house. Hello, Masako, Pyro M. Great to have you all here, and Flap as well, wherever you are, away somewhere north in the country. Thank you all for tuning in. Great to have you all here. And thank you all for all your questions and comments as well. And with that, let's move on to topic 2, shall we? So, Sony and cross-gen. So earlier this week, there was an interview with the PlayStation blog with Herman Holst, the head of PlayStation Studios, who revealed that the sequel to God of War, or Ragnarok as we currently know it, is now also coming to PS4, as well as being what was originally believed to be a PS5 exclusive. In addition to that, it was also confirmed that other games like Gran Turismo 7, also previously described as a PS5 exclusive, are also now getting a PS4 version. So, understandably, there has been some disappointment as a result of these comments, as part of the interview, and there's also been some confusion in the general kind of gaming population regarding what Sony's cross-gen support policy is. So, Scott, Luke, I'll go down the pedal again if you don't mind. Luke, I'll start with yourself. So, what are your thoughts? Did you watch the interview, and what were your thoughts on the interview? And do you have any particular any particular qualms with the fact that these next gen only games are now kind of going to last gen? Do you think it's going to impact the games in any way, or the audience, or what are your thoughts on this?
It's a difficult one, but I think I have to I guess keep the same energy as I have done for all cross-gen games, and it's very true, which is that personally I don't particularly like it. Not because, I mean, obviously it's good business for Microsoft, Sony, whomever does a cross-gen game, because they have a base of millions and millions of active users on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, etc. And it's understandable that they want to expose their early games on this next gen to those people as well. And particularly given the state of the semiconductor market at the moment, it's really difficult to make enough consoles to satisfy demand. And they're doing their best. They're both doing the best of that. But it's a kind of uncertain time in terms of manufacturing capabilities, etc. Of that stuff. So I get all of that. Personally, I don't really care for it because once I've kind of abandoned, the prior gen, I've abandoned it, and it's a very selfish perspective to have. But that's just the way I feel because I'd prefer if a game was, just for a next gen console to really, get everything out of that console that it can, and not be subject to a bit of an arbitrary limitation on the back end. So I mean, that's disappointing. I think it's disappointing in Sony's case to some extent as well, because their messaging on this has generally been very pro leaving a generation behind, and so for them to I guess backtrack on that, and not fully backtrack, I should say, because there have been and there one's coming out next week, purely exclusive PlayStation 5 first party games, right? Early in the gen, we've got Ratchet coming, we had Returnal, Demon's Souls at launch as well. So they have done that, but it made they kind of made it seem like from the beginning that it was going to be as clean a break as possible, and slowly that's been eroded. I mean, the first one was miles at launch, but I guess people understood that. Then Horizon, which was we're making a PlayStation 4 version. And then God of War was never one that was announced purely for PlayStation 5. But I think certainly some people expected that it would fall as one of those games. But maybe equally people didn't, because that apparently it was coming out this year, even though that was never going to happen. So it's been a bit confusing from them, and I think rightfully people have been a bit annoyed with it, particularly because they haven't been as transparent as Microsoft were from the beginning with this. And in fact, if you look at what's happened, I guess Microsoft have almost done the reverse, where they came out quite strongly saying we're going to support stuff for a long time, or not a long time, but a couple of years past launch, and we'll have cross-gen games. And then they've kind of gone silent on a lot of it. And I think that's probably because some of the games they've just decided, actually, no, we want to put as purely series console games. So it's frustrating for me personally, selfishly. But then again, some of these games were always going to be cross-gen realistically, because they started development a couple of years ago, or if that. The one that's really weird is GT7. Because that was always advertised as a PlayStation 5 exclusive game. Like from the first trailer, that's what it was said to be, and then suddenly it's going to PS4 as well. And considering that game comes out next year now, and it's really got no firm release date at all, I don't really see the point. And particularly GT7's a popular game and stuff, but it just seems like, particularly with races, and I assume probably, for motorsport, not Horizon 5, but for motorsport, Microsoft will be just having that on series consoles. They're kind of those genres where you can really push what you can do with the next gen, and they're kind of often the showpieces for your console, right? I mean, racing games can be in general, but so it's a really weird one. It's just some really strange decisions, and maybe these were always intended, and Sony have just been a bit stum as to what they're doing, or maybe they've, for elements of them, excuse me, they've changed their tact. So I don't know. It's a bit of a weird one. I'm not outraged by it by any means, but I just find it a bit strange.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. I'm going to go straight to you, Scott, as well, on the back of that, of what Luke was saying. So regarding, all of these games said to be, leaving one generation behind, they want the developers to focus solely on just the new hardware with the new experiences, such as, the extra features in the controller, for example, was said to be one of the many reasons why they wanted to leave the generations behind. To now backtrack on that and to go off on what Luke was saying. Sorry. What are your thoughts on the kind of messaging on Sony's side in regards to this? Because it's again, Luke's kind of covered a lot of this ground in what he was saying. About yes, we want to support just PS5, just the new hardware, and we're all aware that the pandemic, for example, and the component shortages off the offcut of the pandemic has definitely caused issues. Do you reckon that has also had an influence as to Sony's decision to go to these studios and say, hey, we've got millions of players out there that have PS4s. We know a load of them can't get PS5s. Therefore, we're going to try and silently backtrack. But and with that, I go, is the kind of massive negative community backlash on it, is it unjust, or do you reckon it is justified to some degree?
When it comes to sort of the backlash, I don't think some of the backlash is in any way justifiable. I've seen a lot of takes around sort of Jim Ryan needs to resign or needs to be sacked and things like this. And I think a lot of that is ridiculous. Honestly, I've read the news and none of it surprised me. The only bit that surprised me was Gran Turismo 7. And that was only because they specifically had previously stated that was a PlayStation 5 exclusive. But, no one with any sense, at least in my opinion, thought that God of War was going to be coming 2021. Obviously, we already knew Horizon was cross-gen and coming 2021. Obviously, that's had delays due to the pandemic. So none of it was really at all surprising, like I say, with the exception of GT7. So some of the takes I've seen online are a little bit ridiculous, to be perfectly honest. And these are coming from the same people that are still going to buy the game. These games are still going to sell like hotcakes. They'll probably sell even more because they'll have a large potential user base to sell to. But I know Luke mentioned about the hardware shortages, and I do wonder like how much of an impact has that had, because and you guys might be able to correct me because I can't remember too much, but the PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4 cutoff, I don't recall Sony ever doing sort of cross-gen stuff back then. I remember the Xbox did, with games like Titanfall. I think that was on 360 and Xbox One. I don't recall Sony doing similar things. Obviously, there were always going to be third-party games, like FIFA and stuff that were going to be on both generations. But as far as I'm aware, the PlayStation 5 as it stands, despite the shortages, is outselling the PlayStation 4 at the same time in its lifetime. And if that's the case, I do wonder like how much is the actual chip shortage impacting their decisions, and whether they could maybe just be using it as an excuse. I'm sure it's having some bearing because Sony probably would have wanted to have had more PlayStation 5s out there. But at the same time, how long ago was the decision made to have God of War on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5? Like, the cynic in me would tell me that's always been the case, and they just never announced it because they didn't announce platforms when that was first revealed. The PlayStation 5 version of Gran Turismo, how easy is it just to switch and just go, oh, actually, now we're doing it for PlayStation 4 as well? I am curious as to how much of this is sort of new decisions that Sony have made, are things that they've just sat on for some time because they saw the backlash that Microsoft got when they announced their plans or their strategy with the Xbox One to Xbox Series transition. Microsoft were really transparent out the gate. They announced how they were planning on doing things. I think Microsoft were maybe in an easier position to do it as well because, well, we kind of know a lot of Microsoft's first-party things are probably 2022 and beyond, which means that, very few of their games were going to be within that first sort of 2-year window. While maybe Sony have got a much larger portfolio of games that are going to hit in that first 12 to 24 months. But Microsoft were obviously very clear. They were very transparent, and they got a load of backlash for it. They got a lot of backlash. And Sony around that time were happy to feed into it as well. If you remember Jim Ryan coming out and talking about how he believed in generations, they didn't just stay quiet. They actually fed into that sort of narrative that Microsoft were somehow robbing people of the thrill of a new console. I think I remember the headline on Tech Radar or something like that, and they were happy to go along with it. So the cynic in me says that this has always been the plan. They just didn't want to announce it because they saw the backlash Microsoft got. But obviously, we'll probably never ever know. but I will be curious to just see, how good these games are. I mean, we all saw the Horizon Forbidden West demo. We all saw how bloody good that game looked. That didn't look to me like a game that was being held back by old generation hardware, and I expect the same of God of War as well. But as Luke alluded to as well, you've got games like Demon's Souls, Ratchet and Clank, Returnal, games that are PlayStation 5 exclusive. So it's difficult to understand really what the rationale behind it is. Honestly, I've got absolutely no idea. But they're just doing whatever they feel is best for their business ultimately, and they're bloody good at doing it. They've been massively successful with both the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5 so far. So they'll just do whatever I think they feel is right for the business, and they don't care what Reset Era says or Twitter says, or things like that. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I guess actually I would like to ask Indy. So Indy, you're primarily a PC, you're a PC Master Race kind of guy, aren't you? so this
we'll get hate for that probably, but
I'm just this is all probably just like a whole load of bollocks to you, really, isn't all this generation stuff. So as sort of primarily a PC kind of guy, how does it sort of how do you look at this sort of from, I guess, a little bit from the outside looking in?
Well, I mean, as a general whole, I think this has come down. So you've just that question specifically. I mean, I'm cool with whatever they choose, but I think this has happened basically because it's a revision of their business plan due to a lack of sales due to pandemic. That's what's happened. If they'd got more PS5s in people's hands, they would be happy to do more PS5 exclusives, if you see what I mean. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So basically, I just feel like, they originally started out, they were hoping that by this stage they would have more PS5 sales and more people would be on board for the new for just being on there, because they need people. They've got a lot of customers to service. They can't service just say they've got however many they got on PS5. They're going to be missing out on potential sales if they just make it exclusive. They got a lot of people just on the PS4 still. So like I say, I feel like the pandemic and the ability to get new consoles into people's hands and whatever that has taken has just held them back in their master plan, and they've had to revise it, and rightfully so, because their business is all about moving. If you stand still in business, you will die, basically. It's all about revising daily your business plans, so they've done right to do that. I know people will hate me now because everyone's an Xbox fan around here, and that always happens to me because I always just try and keep it real. But some people, it's just like, I do understand the viewpoint from Luke as well, though, that he'd like it to be. From the selfish point of view, I understand that, but I'm trying to take a sort of bit of a step back. I understand that he wants, because he's one of those guys, the hardcore, who have gone onto that PlayStation 5 and he's got his hands on it. He's always getting the new stuff, like a lot of people are on this hardcore audience around here too, no doubt. But at the same time, there's a lot broader audience out there as well that they have to think about. Yeah. So I think that's what's happened.
Yeah,
really.
And I think to add, because those are really good points, and I think to add to that as well, even though it's got the sales have been, as they have been for the PlayStation 5, which have been pretty unbelievable, that's in a market where they've got supply chain difficulty.
Yeah.
So who knows what their sales would have been had it been a non-pandemic, easy supply chain stuff. And I think even though they do have a lot of consoles, I suspect that they have looked at it and gone, well, actually, because they've launched it, every launch is very costly anyway, for the first year-ish. There's always decreased profits, decreased revenue, etc. Well, not necessarily decreased revenue, but certainly decreased profits. And so they probably just, I suspect maybe for some things, not all games by any stretch, but for some games, they may have just looked at it and gone, well, we've got 8 to 12 months of uncertainty in terms of our supply chain coming up. We don't know how many machines we can feed into people's homes. So let's just get games out to as broad a base as possible for now, and then we'll fix that in terms of future titles once this is all over, whenever it's over. Because I think the only other game that you would say that is we probably know that's coming from them that will no doubt be cross-gen will probably be Factions when that launches. Last of Us Part 2 Factions. So because there's no way they're going to just dump that on PlayStation 5. So I'd suspect everything beyond that point will be PS5 only, because a lot of these things are a good while out, right? If you think the God of War 2, God of War Ragnarok's probably coming out, let's say middle to end of next year, that by that point, all of their other games will have been developed for PlayStation 5 in mind, or at least a significant bunch of them. So.
Yeah, it's pretty wild though, isn't it? Because you mentioned that God of War could be coming sort of second half of 2022. I mean, when they announced that they were pushing it, they were obviously very vague, understandably so, to say just 2022. I think Gran Turismo, they've said a similar thing. I don't think they've been any more specific than just 2022. So if there are any further delays with any of these games, there is a real possibility that we could be seeing cross-gen games sort of as late as maybe early 2023 if there are any further delays, which is pretty wild, isn't it? We get these consoles released 2020 and we're going to still see these first party games. Third party games are never surprising, but first party games being on the console 2 years and maybe even a little bit longer than that later is pretty wild, because that hardware is going to be pretty damn old by that point.
I think that was the same in the last gen, wasn't it? Like, I remember Forza Horizon 2 would it have been at the time? Yeah. I think that was. I remember comparing the two. Xbox 360, Xbox One. Is it better to get Xbox One at the time? You know what I mean? I remember watching a video like that, and obviously I got an Xbox One, but it's funny. Like, I think they're at the stage that was a bit into the generation. I think it tends to be that way. It has to be a sort of migration period kind of thing where they have to service both. I would say I know it feels like quite a long time, but I feel like this gen's going to be maybe quite a long gen as well, potentially.
I think a lot of us expect that as well, don't we? And I think it's so early days, but I know I've seen a few articles that are already starting to talk about like mid-cycle upgrades, and I think how is these even topics yet? Like, we've not even had the current ones for a year, and people are already thinking, I'd argue, maybe too far ahead about console refreshes, but we'll see, I guess. But just to add to this, actually, I've got a question, if anything, because I've seen a few good comments in the chat regarding the chip shortages due to the pandemic and stuff. A lot of people are thinking in the chat that it's actually that reason they believe that Sony have had to change their stance. And again, as you guys on the panel have said about how you're not selling consoles, you're not making a profit. So how do you do that? Okay, let's make our games cross-gen. I'd hate to think that Sony have gone to some studios and gone, that PS5 exclusive we want you to make, can you make it work for the last gen as well? And just picture the headache for that.
Yeah, that is a weird thing. I think it's more about my personal thing is they don't want to leave anyone behind who can't get their hands on their games. I know it's obviously money at the end of the day. They want to be able to sell as many as they can, and that's the target audience that they can sell to, if you see what I mean. So that's how I feel about when if there's more people with the PS5, then they can make more money by selling the game. But it is a weird one.
On that point though, Andy, sorry to interrupt, Box.
Go ahead.
This is for everyone on the panel. Cross-gen games, generally, how much of an impact do you think that has? And the example I would probably use when asking that question is something like Spider-Man Miles Morales, which is a cross-gen title. But if you look at things like the NPDs that come out on a monthly basis, that game is sort of tied to essentially PlayStation 5 hardware sales, where when Sony appeared to be able to get stock to the States, people are getting the PlayStation 5 and then they're picking up Miles Morales to play with it. And that's why it sort of seems to be constantly staying within the top 10. So are people who see these games are available on both consoles, are they thinking, right, I'm going to get it on PlayStation 4 now because I can't miss out? Or are these people thinking, actually, I'm going to get a PlayStation 5 as soon as I get my hands on one? Am I just going to wait? So I guess, and then maybe a follow-up point.
That's why I feel like so I was going to say that's why I feel that technology plays a part in this as well. I feel like this is a slightly lower confidence move from them than maybe usual. If they had all the technology in their hands and they were able to service it, they would sell all of these consoles like in abundance. I think they wouldn't be doing this. That's why I feel this plays a part in it, them holding them back from getting that many sales, because there is the factor to consider as well, which goes against my point, which is, if you get a PS5 exclusive, which isn't on PS4, and and everyone wants that game, then that's a way to get people onto the new gen, if you know what I mean. To buy them, they have to buy that console to then get that game, and that's kind of why it's a slightly less confident move what they're doing at the moment. But I feel that's down to the technology not being available, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So by extension, I don't want to kind of derail too much before we move on. But do you guys reckon that because of these hardware shortages and this potential change in strategy for Sony regarding cross-gen games and all that stuff, do you reckon that has also helped influence their position to also start transitioning games onto PC as well? Because I know this was mentioned before we were aware of chip shortages and stuff of certain games and titles being released through the Epic Game Store, for example. But do you reckon that this has also helped influence Sony to release more games to PC, because that is also a way to get into everyone else's hands? Or do you reckon that actually the PC market is a completely different race anyway, because they're not going to buy a console regardless, and they just want to get these games into more people's hands who they know maybe just won't buy a console?
Yeah, I think probably Sony have had that idea for quite a long time, in terms of taking very tentative steps towards putting their titles on PC. I mean, you can see the way that they've done it has been, remains to this day really slow, right? They give it a few years and then they chuck something on, like Horizon or Days Gone or Death Stranding, which was kind of announced for PC anyway back in the day. I think certainly the pandemic and chip shortages and all of this sort of stuff has probably made them look at PC and including the performance of stuff like Horizon and Days Gone, which have been very successful on Steam. It's probably made them look and think, well, actually, there's a nice little market here that we can just get some extra revenue from, so long as we put out something that's a good PC port. And I know Horizon that struggled initially, but now it's fine. I think there's no doubt they've looked at it as an extra source of revenue during all of this, and it's a really easy source of revenue. There's not a lot of work you need to do to make a decent PC port from the base of games that they've got, and at the minute there's no risk of ostracizing the hardcore console base, because these releases are coming years after the initial day one. So it's just them dipping their toe in, I think, and I think there'll definitely be more of it. They'll keep doing it, and there may be games that in the future launch day and date. I don't think that's going to happen for a good while, but I think at some point, they will start looking at maybe doing that for some of the riskier stuff, certainly. Yeah,
that's cool. No, thank you very much for your comments, guys. I say this is these kind of topics always seem to bring up all sorts of new information and thoughts and insights with people and in chat. So no, thank you all very much for being here, and thank you, panel. Let's do another quick roll call. So we've got Stubbs Gaming, Shizno Elite, Pyro, Fugly, Achievement. We've got Fastbacks in the chat, Pixel Slapper. Good evening, welcome, Mexico again. Thank you all very much. Flap as well, our resident host is watching from afar. Thank you all for being here. Father Flap, yeah.
He's here in spirit.
Listening to our sins, yeah. Oh, and Parksy1972's just joined. Welcome, everybody. Yes, thank you all very much, everyone. And I'm going to move on to the next topic now, and this is a topic I think a lot of us are quite excited to discuss, actually. And this is Nintendo and E3. So Nintendo have, and at the very last minute, Nintendo have announced finally that their upcoming Nintendo Direct is going to be taking place on the 15th of June. And we're going to be getting roughly 40 minutes of information, but they state exclusively on Nintendo Switch software, mostly releasing in 2021. We've had a number of confirmation come amidst heavy rumours that the Switch Pro is going to be unveiled during or even prior to the E3 period. And I think a lot of us were expecting to potentially see something Thursday just gone. No such announcement happened, so it's now kind of got us all twiddling our thumbs and wondering, is even a Switch Pro a thing? I think a lot of us do believe it is, just waiting for the right time. But then Nintendo's messaging again regarding their show on E3 is solely... it's just going to be hot. It's just going to be software, and those are mostly coming in 2021. So I'm actually going to start from the bottom of the panel this time. I'm going to come straight to you, Indie Gamer. Do you have any particular expectations or wishes for the E3 show? And And as an extension of that, do you think a Switch Pro? Well, one, do you think is it a thing? Have the community just kind of made this up? Are all the rumors true? And do you think we're going to see it during their show this year?
Switch, yeah, this good. Yeah, okay. I'm glad you asked that question at the end. Actually, saved me a little bit.
Take them in any order you want. It's fine.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, Switch Pro. Actually, it's a funny one. I know a lot of people have been talking about that bad boy for a while, and it's kind of like hiding in the shadows all the time. It's kind of has it been fabricated out of nothing. But I don't know. I personally feel like the Switch Pro is not going to be this kind of like powerhouse of a thing as a. It's not going to be. Basically, how I feel it is it's a standardization upgrade to keep it in line with 4K. Essentially, you know what I mean. Moving forward with the times, just to keep it standardized with the rest of the market. I don't feel like it's going to be this like I don't know like this other tier of like basically an Xbox on a like handheld for Nintendo, if that makes any sense. It's still going to be for the Switch market. It's going to be just giving a little clean up and spruce up and just keep it, like I say, as a standardization. They have talked about a high quality screen though, haven't they? I do believe. Is it like a OLED screen? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's kind of in the rumor mill that they've got an OLED screen. Well. It's slightly larger, apparently, at 7 inches, and bezel-less, I think, is also another thing which has been being thrown around.
I feel like it's just a new, when they did Xbox One S and then they did another Xbox One S or whatever it was. I can't even, they did so many different versions of the Xboxes. And I feel like this is again what it is. And that we had the original Switch, which had a crap battery compared to the replacement, which had a better battery. And now we're getting another Switch, which again, sorry if anyone's excited for the Switch Pro, I'm being very down on it a little bit. But, I feel like again.
You can't drown my excitement, it's fine.
I'm so sorry, Huxley. I'm doing that all the time lately. I did it with Tunic the other day, I think, didn't I?
Yes, you downed my expectations on that as well. I couldn't believe it.
I'm going to make it up to you, I promise. But yeah, no, I do think it will be great. I mean, it's going to become the new standard for the Switch. You know what I mean? I think if it is real, that is, which I do think it is. But I just don't think it's going to be some sort of like crazy machine. I don't know. It's not going to be like in line with like an Xbox One X or anything like that. I doubt. You know what I mean? It's going to be. I'm sure Luke will dive into the technical details of more of this stuff because I'm not as good on that. But I just feel like what they're doing is, like I say, standardization, making the screen better for current technology and stuff like that, which is in line with the rest of the market, and just giving the games just a little bit of a spruce up. I'm not really sure how it's going to work with regards to the games. I feel like it's just going to be, because they can't have these different versions, I don't think. If they have a game and then maybe they can have an update for higher assets or something like that, if it's even that goes that far. But I don't even know if it's going to do that much. I feel like it's just going to be better screen, maybe, I don't know, just like, just more like quality of life sort of features, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, no, I do.
Does that make any sense?
I've had that thought as well, actually, because you're right, and I think Nintendo have had this. I don't want to call it an issue because I think they've handled it relatively well in most instances. But I think the Nintendo DS, the 3DS line is a good example, right? Because you had the base one and they had the XL, exactly. But then they brought out the new 3DS, which was meant to have its own exclusives. Yeah. I think in total, it only had like 6 exclusives. I think Nintendo eventually very quickly realised that nobody's upgrading to the new one just for this 1 or 2 games or for some extra performance. So, but then as you say, the Switch has sold like hotcakes over the last 4 years, and arguably it's selling more currently because of the fact that it's hard to get an Xbox and a PlayStation at the moment. But even so, Switch has been at the top of the sales month on month for several years now, and a load of people want them, and I think they're in higher demand than ever. So, but as you say, I agree with what you say in that, there's so many standard Switches. I think most of us have the original Switch, if you're going to call it that now, as well as the Switch Lite as well. So many people are jumping on a Switch Lite, whether it's for young children or otherwise, or just as their portable only unit, because I think there's a load of people in the community which have said that, actually they don't like playing it on the TV. They love to actually just hold it in their hands. And as you said, Oh, sorry, you were going to say about the screen already, but the screen makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, no, I get the screen. I was just going to add on about, Nintendo obviously still need to, well, not just Nintendo, sorry, all of the developers developing for Switch need to always keep in mind that they are developing, or keep their requirements as they're building a game that they have to run on standard hardware, and then maybe they'll do similar to maybe what smart delivery is, in that you have these Xbox One developed titles, and maybe I don't mean this literally, but effectively Nintendo have their own versions of like a 4K patch, for example. So if it detects you're running on a Switch Pro, then maybe you can get better assets on that.
Yeah,
it's maybe my thinking.
It's potential, but it's definitely they're gonna keep it most of these, I think, focused as those sort of like nice upgrades, which is going to keep it in line with what they're doing, because I don't think they want to complicate things too much. I think that's a key thing in business as well, is not to complicate your sort of like your spread of like options and stuff. Sometimes it's best to be clear cut on what you can get. What you can get is maybe this one or this one, and this one's your upgraded one. Not have too like much complication going on. Well, I don't want developers developing different games for you know what I mean, for different hardware. I think that would just be bonkers, which they won't go down that route, I'm sure. But if you get what I mean, where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to ask you the first question again, actually. So, because I know we both know this, and unfortunately, we both saw the left message that there will be no Silk Song release this year, or announcement, I should say, during E3 this year. Because I know we were both probably expecting it to be part of this Nintendo showcase. Yeah. So, I'm gonna rephrase the question because I'm thinking about this on the fly. So. Okay. One, do you reckon there is any chance that maybe that is false and maybe we'll see something during the Nintendo E3 presentation? And in addition to that, are there any other particular games or titles, indie or otherwise, which are mainly kind of well known to be shown on Nintendo's show that you're maybe looking forward to, or anything in particular you're watching out for?
I'll go with the first thing. Yeah, good shout. I mean, with regards to the Silk Song thing, I did kind of say... it's obviously Lef has said it's not going to be there on the Hollow Knight Discord. I did sort of, maybe as a bit of a joke, but I sort of said, is he sort of playing the games? He's having a little bit of a laugh with us, because he is kind of a cheeky kind of character. I think he enjoys the sort of fun of the marketing side of things. He's the marketing guy for Hollow Knight, obviously, if you didn't know. But yeah, I mean, I think there is still a slim chance. I don't want to just give people hope, but it would be quite a random thing to do. But he is quite a kind of quirky kind of guy. So, but I mean, I'm happy for it if it's not there. Like I've said a million times, it's good it's still cooking, and when it's ready, we'll see it. It would have been a cool stage to see it on, but like. Maybe it doesn't even need the big E3 stage at the end of the day. The only reason I thought it might have been there is because it does feel like we've said a million times together. It's being, marketed by Nintendo, even though they're not got an actual deal. I don't believe he confirmed, but it was on the Treehouse, which is at 2019. So they've got the Treehouse again this time, which is exciting. Which gave me a little tear a little bit, because when they said Treehouse, I was just like, Silk Song. I remember the days. Yeah. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, I don't know. I will hold up a little bit of hope for it, but I think they show some good stuff on that Treehouse. I'm glad that's coming back. It's cool to get those deeper dives, which they do on the Treehouse thing. They've obviously got a 45-minute showcase. I don't really play a lot of first-party Nintendo stuff, I have to say. I have got a Switch. I'm sorry.
You just don't like them, or?
I don't know what it is, really. I don't know. I kind of bought my Switch to play indies on, and no surprise there, is it? Obviously. But then I bought it initially, and then that was before I got my PC. You see, and then I got the PC, and now the PC. I play all the indies that I would have played on the Switch on, if you see what I mean. Because there was quite a few Xbox games that weren't, because I played Xbox first, obviously, and then I noticed there was quite a few Xbox games quite a few indie games that weren't getting released on Xbox, and they were going to Switch and PC, and I was like, okay, I'll get a Switch. And I was playing the indies on there, which I was enjoying, and then I was like, right, it's time to get PC, and now I don't play my Switch ever, if I'm honest. I've still got like Mario Kart, of course, that's a great laugh, but doesn't come out very often. And I had Mario Odyssey, and I don't know. I think we will, if you want me to give a little insight to what I think I might see on the first party side. The only thing I really can give you is probably I think we will see Breath of the Wild 2. That's got to happen, and I hope it happens for you, my friend. It'd be great to see a good showcase of that. I think that's going to be a good feature of that 45-minute thing going on. Maybe even they'll do something after in the Treehouse part of it, where it's deeper dive on that after a trailer of it. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they've got. I don't know if they do any like indie stuff, like, because they obviously have the Indie World showcase, as the a standalone version, as we all know, which focuses on indie games through Nintendo. I don't know if they put anything into this main showcase. It's only 40 minutes, so it's not a very long time. I think they might focus on just like the main first party stuff in there. But I'm looking forward to seeing it. There's a lot to look forward to this E3 in general. So it's good to see them being part of it and doing their usual thing. I always enjoy what they do, but I just don't play as many first party games on the Nintendo side of things these days, I have to admit. There's so many games though, isn't there? Just so many games.
It's too much to keep track of, yeah.
It really is, yeah. Just one more thing which potentially got was an indie game, which has been shown on the Xbox stage historically. This is a bit of an outside chance, but it's not actually owned by Xbox or anything like that. So you never know. Cuphead, the delicious last course, it could come up on the Nintendo side of things.
That's a good shout as
well.
I
hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so, Indy. I sat
cool,
4 hours with you for an ID at Xbox, and that was one of the things I hoped to end up. 4 hours and that little thing didn't show up. So that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
It was a good 4 hours, my friend. For the time, it was a long, draining time, but it was also a blast for hanging with you. But yeah, it would be great seeing that delicious last course come back because it's been such a long time. But you never know. They have been working on a TV series as well, which you guys probably know about. So I don't know if that's taken a little bit of their resources away, but we'll see.
No, that's cool. No, thank you very much, Indy. I'm going to move back over to you next, Scott, and I'm going to ask you pretty much a similar question. So, do you think the Switch Pro is real? I think we kind of all believe it is. Do you think we're going to see it as part of the show? And are there any particular expectations or wishes as part of Nintendo's E3 that you are specifically looking forward to hopefully seeing?
So when it comes to the Pro, actually, question for everyone: what do you think it's going to be called? What would you want it to be called?
I suppose following trend. I don't know if I want it to be called this, but trend kind of makes me think they're going to call it new Nintendo Switch or something like that.
Oh, that'd be so boring.
Yeah, I know.
That's the good question, though, because that kind of it leads into why I think everyone's being misled. The thing the Switch Pro does is make everyone think it's this beast of a machine, I think. And it's like that's why I was going back and saying about the standardization thing. I don't think it will be called a Switch Pro for sure. But it might even just be called Nintendo Switch, and they have just I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a different tier then? Does everyone think it's?
That's a good point, actually, because I think, again, this is all obviously rumour, right, and following the one person that apparently has inside knowledge, but I think, again, it's been reported again through rumour mills that, this new machine or upgraded machine is going to be shipping as early as September or October, with the original being very quickly phased out, is kind of the messaging, and then the light is going to be your entry tier, so... It's got substance. Yeah. That could well be the case, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. They're very simplistic with their branding, so that would fit into that, I think.
Yeah, I kind of just, as somebody who grew up playing a Super Nintendo or a SNES, as we called it, I don't think. Did you guys call it a SNES, or was that just sort of a northern thing? Because
I called it a SNES. Yeah.
The guys in the States don't call it the SNES. They just call it the Super Nintendo. So it sounds like
call it Super NES, I think, or something. Yeah, all different ways.
Say the letters.
the SNES.
Oh yeah, they do that. So yeah.
So I would love for it to be called the Super Switch. I think just going back to that. But actually, you do raise a good point there, Indy, because the rumors, as you mentioned there, Pox, are it's going to be replacing the current Switch. So then there'd still only be two SKUs. There would be this new, improved, and more powerful Switch and the Switch Lite, and then kind of what is currently the Switch would essentially be discontinued. So they wouldn't, if rumors are to believed, obviously they wouldn't be going to three SKUs. It would just be two. So there is just a chance they call it the Switch.
I think it will be.
Switch,
yeah.
But I love it to be called the Super Switch, just to remind me of my youth.
That's quite cool, yeah. Or the Switch turbocharged.
It's Nintendo, so it'll be called something. If it is a separate SKU, which I think it will be something that's nonsense.
Yeah, it will be.
It'll never just be the easy choice. It'll be like the the Switch Duo or some weird nonsense thing.
I think we've all seen the meme, haven't we, with what it's going to be called, like the new Super Nintendo Switch Pro Excel,
Yeah.
or give it everything else, you know.
I think that was
Yeah.
the sort of, I saw a picture of an apparent Amazon listing in like Amazon France or something where this, if it was real, that is, they had seemingly covered all bases, where they just call it the new Super Nintendo Switch Pro or something. They're just trying to essentially cover all bases. So, but I think in terms of the hardware, mate, I think there's no smoke without fire here. I think it's just a matter of time for this thing, and maybe just to jump on Indy's negativity from
realism.
I'm really not a fan of the Switch hardware. I'm really not a fan of like the hardware itself. Obviously, I love the games, but I think the hardware is honestly awful. Like, I can't put it any other way. The Joy-Cons are woeful. I had an issue with mine, which I think a lot of people did, where the dock was sort of scratching the screen from moving it in and out of the dock. The battery life, because I've got the original model, is awful, and it's just not. It's not a nice experience to me to play handheld. I cannot. The Switch to me is not a handheld device because it's so uncomfortable to play handheld. If I ever play it not on the TV, I've got it on the table with the kickstand out, and I'm playing with the Pro controller.
That's a good controller.
Yeah, the Pro controller is awesome. Actually, we were talking about it through the week when we were chatting amongst ourselves, and I was saying I don't think I've ever really used the Joy-Cons once because I can just tell by the size of them that it's not going to be comfortable experience. So so for me, whatever it is, I kind of just wanted to be more powerful, so it looks nicer on my 4K TV, because I think I've said it in the past, some games can look a little rough. The concern that I've got though, and this may be similar to yourself, Indy, I don't play my Switch that often at the moment, but it's kind of the opposite, because I play it only for the big first party releases generally, and then I kind of go months without touching, so I can't even remember last time I played my Switch. Well, actually, it was when the 3D All Stars thing came out, and so I would just like something that's a little bit more powerful, something that looks a little bit nicer on the TV. But price is a factor as well, because I don't play it that often. I would be hesitant maybe to pick it up at launch. I might wait until maybe the next big game comes out. But as someone who was stung by the 3DS, and I don't know if you guys remember when the more powerful 3DS came out, how some of the games that they released, if I remember rightly, they ran super poorly on the original 3DS hardware. And the Switch is already in a place at the moment where the one that stands out to me is Pokemon Sword and Shield. And if you've gone into the wild area on Pokemon Sword and Shield, you'll know that game at times runs in single digits FPS. It's really not a pleasant experience. And if you remember the Pokemon Legends Arceus reveal, the performance of that, obviously it was a reveal and there was still time to fix it, but performance of that didn't look great. And I do become maybe a little bit concerned that will we find a similar situation where these games are designed primarily for the more powerful hardware, and therefore the game runs poorly on the old hardware, and because we're already in a situation now where games, in my opinion, run poorly on that old hardware in a lot of cases. And like I say, Pokemon's the big one that stands out for me, but I remember even Legend of Zelda, I recall having sort of frame rate issues there, and I'm not someone that's sensitive to that sort of thing either. I'm not sensitive to sort of frame drops and stuff like that, and even to me, those games really stood out as having performance issues. So I hope they don't repeat the mistakes that maybe they made with the 3DS or the more powerful 3DS. But time will obviously tell. I don't think at this point we're going to hear about it until later in the year now. I think if we were going to hear about it, we would have heard about it by now. They've specifically said the show next week is going to be a week on Tuesday is going to be focused on software. I don't think they can go against that. But to be fair, the last direct that they showed, they were like, right, this is specifically on games coming in the first half of 2021. And then they ended the show with a game announced for 2022. So anything is possible, I guess. But I think it's going to be 2021 games, which could be a lot of games that we already know about, and then I think the mostly releasing in 2021. I'm gonna hazard a guess that means Breath of the Wild's 2022 at this point, and that's going to be their big showpiece. Otherwise, I think it would have been pretty much everything in 2021. The only hope that I would have for it is that people will finally get to see Metroid. I think Metroid Prime
That's a
4
good
is kind of the
shout,
big one that I would like to see, because we were just talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake. Metroid's had sort of a similar thing where they essentially stopped development, moved it over to Retro, and they kind of restarted development there. So I know people are very excited for that. So that's the one I'd hope to see.
So that's your big hitter, is that you want to see Metroid Prime 4?
Yeah, because I think there's maybe something that I'm not necessarily expecting, or would be a bit of a surprise, because it restarted. Breath of the Wild 2 is the thing I'm most excited for, but I think that's basically a given. That's going to be sort of their main thing of the show. So hopefully, maybe there's a little bit surprise that, and something maybe like Bayonetta 3. It's been a while since we've seen that game. Maybe that shows up. Yeah, and I think the only other thing that I would really, really love to see is probably, which I don't think we'll get because it would be pointless for them making it, is Mario Kart 9. Mario Kart's one of my favorite games ever.
Nice.
But
Yeah,
when Mario Kart 8 it's already in the 30-odd million copies sold and continues to sell. They've got
the best-selling game on Switch so far, isn't it?
Yeah, they've got zero reason to make another one. But yeah, I think that's where I'm at with Nintendo.
Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah.
A new one of those would be cool, but then it just takes away from Mario Kart, doesn't it? But
yeah.
No, thanks, Scott. If I'm honest, Luke, I'm going to come back to you basically with the same questions, because I feel confident you've got pretty strong thoughts on this as well, mainly especially around the Switch Pro. So I'll repeat the same question again. Because I know we did speak about it just prior to going live. Is it now? We all expected it on Thursday. Nothing was shown, and it's all looking quiet, which Nintendo are very kind of notoriously known for. Do you think there's still time, if there's anything going to be revealed prior, that we'll see it any time this week? I don't think we will personally, but I'd like to know what you think. Do you think there's any chance that they might slip it in the main show? And are there any particular games that you're really hoping to see, or any potential old or potentially old Nintendo IP which hasn't been used in a while? Because there's also been rumors about certain old IP being redeveloped for Switch on with new platform with new games. So, any particular thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'll take it bit by bit. So I think in terms of when we'll see it, I mean, I think there's still a fair chance it will be before E3, but it's really hard to tell, right? It's really hard to judge where this will fall. If it will even fall this month, they may just say, you know what, we're going to do a separate event at some other time. These plans can be very much in flux as well, so they may have thought that it was going to, they may have scheduled it in for soon and then changed their mind. So we don't know. I definitely do not think it will be in the showcase. I think they were quite explicit for a reason on that, to without saying we've got new hardware in the works, but it's not going to be at the Direct. They were quite explicit in saying, look, this is just a software show. That's all it's focused on. So I don't think we'll see it at the show. So that either leaves it, if it's going to be this month, it's either before or after. And it's really difficult to judge. I hope we see it before. The original rumors were that perhaps they would show it before, on the basis that they would want to show some software running on it during the show and during Treehouse Live, and so that their third party partners could also show some stuff on it. So maybe that's the case. Who knows? Luckily, we've only got a week to wait, right? We're going to see very shortly whether that's the case. So, I mean, to touch on, I guess, before I go into the game stuff, like the hardware stuff, I think, from everything we know about it, and it's definitely real. It's 100% real. That when you have teams like Bloomberg saying that, it's going to enter production in July, then it's 100% real. Bloomberg have said that it's an upgraded version of the Switch. The other kind of thing we know about it in terms of what we can what's been rumored, credible rumors from people like Bloomberg, Jason Schreier, etc., is that it will support DLSS, and that's how it will achieve 4K res on its games. And if it does support that, then it has to have something baked into its hardware. It has to have tensor cores, which are baked into all of the RTX cards.
There's a lot of rumors potential 4K functionality would be in the dock only, wouldn't it? Because it wouldn't be 4K on the Switch itself.
No, but I don't know how you would get it to do that, because the dock, the way that it connects to the dock via I think it's USB 3, isn't it? You could not run hardware across that framework in that manner, because you could easily have DLSS cores on a mobile chip, like the Switch, for example, right? That's not an issue. Now, obviously, when it's running in a handheld mode, they wouldn't be activated, because you're not needing to. You don't need to change the res, right? It has a maximum res of 1080p, or even not even that. It's 720 on the Switch handheld, isn't it? So
yes, yeah.
But the point being that if it's going to have DLSS, which I think it's almost certain that it will need to be a different chip on the Switch. So it will need to be something custom or something off the shelf. I mean, it's probably going to be quite heavily customized. And if you're doing that, then there's no way that they're just going to get a downclocked Tegra X1, which is what's on the Switch at the moment, and just bolt on some tensor cores and say, there's your Super Nintendo Switch Pro. Because, first of all, it's not cost effective to do that. And the Tegra it's not going to work in the same way as a new modern chip would with DLSS technology. So I think actually the upgrade is going to be quite significant. Now, it's obviously not going to be a PS4 Pro or an Xbox Series X, but I think it's genuinely quite plausible that it will match something like an Xbox One in terms of power, considering that amount of power in a mobile chip is really easy to attain now, and you don't have to spend a lot of money getting there. You just take a look at Apple's mobile technology and some of Nvidia's newer chips. They are easily more powerful than an Xbox One in a lot of respects. Where they tend to be let down, it's actually on the CPU side, not their GPU capabilities. And Bloomberg as well have also confirmed that, look, this is going to have increased visual and processing performance plus extra memory. That's what they've said. So I think it will be something quite significant, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out in terms of, does it replace the current Switch as the normal Switch, let's call it, as the de facto new model, and then all the other Switches are just kind of left, not left behind, because obviously they'll continue to be supported with all the same games, but it will just allow them to push forward, the things that they want to push forward on the new chip, which is 4K, and trying to keep that as modern as possible. So I think taking a more optimistic view, it's going to be a lot more powerful than maybe some people think. It's also Nintendo, however, so it won't be as powerful as they could make it if they really wanted to. It will still be cost effective, but you can have something much more powerful than the Switch nowadays and still be very cost effective.
Yeah. Do you reckon there'll be much? Sorry, go on.
No, go on.
I was going to say, adding on, because I do agree with you on this, that we're expecting a relatively significant hardware upgrade, but my view in terms of the the mechanical design, so to speak, I don't think we're going to be seeing much difference in a form factor. Do you think otherwise? No.
Yeah. I think the rumors peg it as exactly the same form factor as the Switch, exactly the same size, and the way that they will get the size increase on the screen is just to remove the bezels, basically. Yeah. And obviously, it will have 100%. It will have an OLED screen, which will be a massive boon for that in handheld.
Definitely,
that's going to be fantastic. Even if it somehow turned out that the only upgrade was an OLED screen, that would still be a really good upgrade in handheld mode. Not that it will be; it's going to be more significant than that. But yeah, so I don't expect to. I think the only other thing that will change, I have a sneaking suspicion that they will change the kickstand. I think what they will because the kickstand at the minute has a lot of issues, and I think what they'll probably do is make it more like a Surface Pro, something like that, a horizontal form factor one. So so I think that's the case. So that's, I take the opposite end of indie on it. Not that you're wrong, bro, but you're probably wrong. I'm not. But if you're right, I will come on one of your shows and I will say that you were right.
Okay, just announce it as a dedicated video.
It'll be a separate topic on one of your shows that I'm going to announce that I was wrong. And then in terms of games, what am I hoping to see? Obviously Breath of the Wild 2, everybody wants to see that, me included. I'd love to see Metroid Prime 4, but I just don't think it's going to happen. It's still too early in its redevelopment, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
I think as soon as close as a couple of months ago, I saw that Retro were hiring for an art director for it. So I imagine it's quite a way away. Bayonetta 3 is one that really should be shown off by now because it was announced a long time ago. And it's a bit strange that it hasn't been shown beyond that point because, like, I love Bayonetta, but it's an action brawler, right? It's a Devil May Cry type game, and I do wonder if it's kind of gone hand in hand with the development of the Pro in the background, where Platinum were looking to make this kind of a showpiece title, but were not able to do so on the Switch, and therefore it's been kind of reworked or held back or whatever you want to say until such point as they can show it on a Pro machine, because that will be the definitive experience of it. Maybe not, but I think it's about time. I really expected to see it. I'd be quite disappointed if it wasn't there, because I think it was announced in, was it 2018, maybe earlier, maybe a bit.
I thought it was earlier than that, to be honest.
Yeah, might be 2017 actually. Now that I think about it. And I guess in terms of surprise announcements, I don't know really. I think, like, oddly enough, something like Mario Kart 9 would be quite a surprise at this point for the reasons that, like Scott said,
Yeah, because there was that leak a while back, wasn't there, about potential, like, as I said earlier, like, old IP or current Nintendo IP which hasn't had a game in years, like, potentially making comebacks. Like Donkey Kong, for example, was a game which was rumored to also have it, like a proper platforming game, and not like the Donkey Kong Country style, was my understanding.
Yeah, I think the heavy rumor on that was that the EPD group that did the Super Mario Odyssey were making a 2D Donkey Kong game. Now, if that's true, then that's already my game of E3. I don't have to see anything else. I absolutely love Donkey Kong, and the idea of the Odyssey team making that, even if it's 2D, is fantastic. So if we see that, and kind of, if that is true, it shouldn't be that far from release, because Odyssey was completed, at the launch of the Switch, right? So
it was like November 2017.
Reasonable time frame of it. So you'd kind of expect it to be close to complete now, or certainly in the final phases of development. So that would again be a bit of a surprise, but would be great. I think for me, like, the thing that, put Bayonetta and Metroid aside, the thing that I'd really like to see from Nintendo that would be a surprise is just something weird that's adult orientated. Like, it's suddenly, and not that this would happen, but like Eternal Darkness style game, right? Something quite, geared towards a less family friendly audience. I'm sure Indy won't like that because he loves his family friendly stuff.
Sorry, I missed that. Sorry, was that?
No. Well, you don't like your gore and stuff, right? So
what's this getting out of that? That's just that one specific.
Any violence, he just turns his TV on.
Yeah, he's a me for everyone kind of guy.
What have I been playing this week, Luke? You know what I've been playing this week, my friend? We talked about Doom Eternal. What's about violence in that?
I bet you've turned off all the gore on that. They just pop confetti when they're shot or something confetti.
Like that. Green blood or something. It's like in Mortal Kombat back in the
day. But that's what I'd like to see. So that would be a surprise. Something like, an adult oriented title. That would be a good surprise.
No, it's really cool. I really appreciate all your feedback and comments on this, guys. I say it's been quite a long topic this evening, and as for myself, I know I've kind of said it halfway in between when you guys have all been speaking, but I'm of a similar mindset as well to all of you. So I do believe it's real. I would like to think that there may be some sort of final announcement this week, although I keep changing my mind on it on the fly the more I think about it. Part of me believes it's now too close to the start of E3 being, well, basically Thursday, right, with some of the earlier announcements. I feel like it's maybe just too soon to announce it at this point, although I'd love to see it. Because I had seen some kind of, again, it's all rumour mill, I know we can't trust it. Take it with a large grain of salt, but I did obviously see some articles and other notes online suggesting that they wanted to announce it prior to their main E3 presentation because the devs wanted to show their games actually running on this improved hardware. So that's what got my excitement going. So I do still have my fingers crossed for it. I am slowly losing hope that we are going to see it this side of E3, if at all. But fingers crossed. In terms of games, again, I kind of mirror all you guys as well, really. Like Breath of the Wild 2, definitely. I know this year is the Zelda 35th anniversary. I know there are a number of massive Zelda fans, myself included, who are relatively disappointed with the lack of like a massive 35th thing or event, I guess, compared to the Super Mario one. But I know we did get the announcement of Skyward Sword HD that's coming out in July. But alongside the 35th anniversary, I know there were some rumours at least regarding there being like a collection that would involve like Twilight Princess HD, Wind Waker HD, as they both came out on the Wii U as well. And I know there were also some reports, people hosting their wishes online, shall we say, about having a collection that also includes like Majora's Mask, the updated version that came out on the 3DS, for example, was same as Ocarina of Time. People just seem to want like this massive collection, which I think is probably going a bit too far, given how the Mario 3D collection was. I know I love that game. I know there's a lot of criticisms against it, but I agree with a lot of those criticisms. But I still really enjoy the package. I do hope there is a package for the Zelda universe, but I do also mirror what most of you have said as well regarding Mario Kart 9. I'd like to think that this thing does exist. It kind of played a big part in a rumour mill about 2 or 3 weeks ago. There was some sort of leak that suggested there was a new Mario Kart on the horizon. And I'd be really excited for this. Yeah, go on.
I'd be excited for it. So I was going to say, like, Mario Kart 9 Days, what makes you wonder what they're going to do? I know they did all these different with Double Dash or something, wasn't it? And they changed that. It's always the same, but it's a little bit, just a refresh. I think it'd be cool if they did a Diddy Kong Racing. I know I said it a little bit earlier on, but if they can, Diddy Kong Racing on Nintendo 64 was awesome. If they brought that back as a, another, as Mario Kart kind of experience, obviously, as you probably played it, I thought that would be quite cool. Bring that one back, and that's, I think a lot of people like that game.
Yeah, I think they did. I just don't know if the Diddy Kong... I don't know. Diddy Kong is kind of, I'd argue, a relatively unknown character compared to Mario, if you get what I mean. I don't... Yeah. I understand that for those that loved the N64 original, and I think there was one that came out on the original DS as well, if I remember correctly.
I had that as well, actually. Yeah,
you did, yeah.
I had it on the DS, yeah.
It'd be great to see something like that. I personally don't see it happening. But one thing I can think of, I agree with you. There was always like some sort of gimmick with each Mario Kart. But then, what do you do now? Because the gimmick here was, that you could go on the walls and you go upside down, and the paraglider wasn't even new on this game. That was on the Mario Kart 7 on the 3DS. So I mean, my thoughts what they could do for a Mario Kart 9, assuming one is even a thing, is to basically implement what they did in Mario Kart Tour, the mobile version. And I don't mean like monetization or that kind of thing. I'm mainly relating to not only having this larger roster of characters, but rather than kind of getting stuck just playing as the character, I actually really liked the aspect of unlocking the different costumes for characters. Because yes, it's the same character, but I don't know, it's almost like that Fortnite-esque thing where it's a beloved character. Oh, there's no beloved characters in Fortnite, but
no love for Fortnite.
Apart from, was it Josie, whatever his name is? But yeah, but the idea of that, have different costumes and have different criteria to unlock things. And I know even in the more recent games, there's was it Mario Kart Golf or the new one that came out very recently? Like you have these recurring characters like King Bob-omb, which you only really saw before on, as the boss in Mario 64, right? He wasn't really much around after that. So these kind of enemies that are kind of making a comeback as characters, I think that's probably quite a good addition, even if it's just increasing your roster to unlock things. I think that's a good thing to potentially implement. But
have they ever done third-party characters in Mario Kart in the same way they've done with Smash?
Yeah, they did on Mario Kart 8 and Deluxe. They had the Animal Crossing characters like Isabelle and like the standard kind of character.
Yeah,
you had the
Splatoon. I mean like third party, like outside of Nintendo. Obviously, the Smash. Obviously, you've got Cloud, you've got Cuphead, you've got Sonic. Have they ever done anything like that with Mario Kart?
No, not as far as I'm aware.
I wonder if they'd ever do that. Try to bring sort of other characters in the same way.
Would people take well to that? Do you think? I don't know if Nintendo fans would like that.
Nintendo are quite strict about who they have in their games, aren't they, and stuff.
Yeah.
Remember Sonic Racing Transformed or something? Didn't they have like Link in that game or something? Do you remember that,
Oh,
guys?
did they?
Oh, was
Which
it
is
the Wii
completely
version?
random.
Yeah.
Ah, maybe that was why. Yeah.
Because I know
Nah.
because there was a Wii U game of Sonic Lost World that had Zelda and Yoshi's Woolly World DLC, I believe, and it was only on the Wii U version of Sonic Lost World. I know that was a
Really?
thing, just as
Right.
like a bit of a tie-in, but I don't know if that. Yeah, you may well be right. I don't know at all.
I think they had some like random characters in that game though, but like it's a different approach, I guess, would be quite cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, outside of that, I mean, apart from, yes, it'd be great to see a 3D platforming Donkey Kong. I think there was even some rumours of a 3D-based Kirby game as well. Because I know there was obviously the 3D but 2.5D side-scrollers on the 3DS, which seemed to do quite well. Apart from that, yeah, I think that's my takes, really. And in terms of what I expect, I mean, I think those ones are pretty big surprises, especially ones like Mario Kart 9. So I'd very much love to see that. And of course, Breath of the Wild 2, the 35th collection, if that's a thing. My only reason I don't think we'd see a 35th collection is because I think Nintendo previously stated that they had their own internal plan that they would release one Zelda title a year. And they have done that so far. Obviously, starting off with Breath of the Wild, and then it was... What was
Link to the Past?
Link's Awakening.
Oh, Link's Awakening, sorry.
That's the one,
apologies, yes.
Link's Awakening. Then it was Hyrule Warriors, and then there was another one. I'm sure there's another one. I can't
They
remember.
had Cadence of Hyrule that came out as well. If that counts,
Yes, I
guess
think
was kind of
that
like
did count
Cadence
in
Hyrule.
terms of them. Yeah. So we'll see,
Yeah.
I guess. But well, as Luke said, I think all of you have said, we've got basically a week to go. So the hype train is on, I think.
Hype train for sure.
Definitely. So before we move on to our final miscellaneous topic, do we have any comments at all? I know I've seen chat going a bit crazy with some of these Nintendo titles.
We have
Nice.
indeed. So Indy's got a couple as well. I'll just go through a couple first, Indy, if that's all right. Before
Yeah.
I pass it over there. So a couple here from. One here from Pyro Matt, who says his jaw will drop if Phil Spencer appears on a Nintendo Direct with the new limited version of Game Pass for Switch. Obviously, that's been rumored for
That's a
some
good
time,
point.
some sort of collaboration between Microsoft and Nintendo. Ballman Gamer says Nintendo are going to scrap the Switch Pro and re-release the original Super Nintendo with 4K graphics and 60 FPS. And we'll be playing Super Mario World in 4K 60. A couple on the name of the Switch. So Parksy says the Switch Plus. Pyromat says the Swatch. I quite like the idea of the
I like that one,
yeah. A couple here from Hansworth Senior. He says it'll just be Switch 2021. While when they, I guess, revised the old Switch, and when they increased the new battery, it was just sort of the 2019 version of the Switch. And he says they also call it the SNES in Germany as well. So we're not alone.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then last one from me from Back from the Dead, who says, I highly doubt there's a Switch Pro. Eventually they'll just make a new console. If anything, they might make a cheaper option that's not mobile.
Wow. Okay.
On that point, do you guys ever see Nintendo releasing a non-handheld version of the Switch? I personally don't see it. Obviously they've got the Lite, but I don't think I'll ever see them releasing basically
really.
just a
Yeah.
permanent
No, I
dock
don't-
Switch without a screen. I mean, obviously, you can never say never, but I mean,
Yeah.
I guess in my opinion, seems unlikely.
Yeah. I think also, one of the reasons I think it will be a pretty significant step up from the Switch is because they want to ride this out for as long as possible because it's so successful.
Yeah.
That there's
Yeah.
no need really. I mean, how many years has Switch been out now? 4?
4 years
Yeah.
now, yeah.
4?
Arguably
So
halfway through its life. So
Yeah. So if we say normally it's about 7 years, right? 6 to 7 years for a gen. We're only now getting the Switch Pro. I think they want to extend the Switch, its life as a product for, I think probably something like 8 to 9, maybe 10 years. I don't think they're that interested in making a brand new successor.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably one of the reasons why they're doing the Pro, and probably one of the reasons why they will have it be more of a significant upgrade. And watch, they'll announce it tomorrow. It'll just be crap and just barely an upgrade. But I think that's probably one of the reasons why they will make it a significant upgrade, because they need it to be able to last a lot longer than a normal normal console gen would. So
On that topic though, Luke, so if it is just sort of a revised model,
Yeah.
how do they then handle? We've obviously just been talking about the cross-gen approach for Sony and Microsoft, and obviously there's a quite clear divide. You've got a PlayStation 4 and a PlayStation 5, and obviously games were released on both, but they can quite clearly say this one's on PlayStation 4, this one isn't. If Nintendo plan to sort of ride this out for as long as possible, which I'm sure they will, how do you think they'll handle that? Because if it's just the Switch, are they in a messy situation where you've got something like what you have with the iPhone, where it's like it only works on these iPhones, but it's good on these iPhones? Does that potentially complicate the matter for Nintendo as sort of the Switch hardware gets even older?
I think it will to some extent. Yeah, I think that's probably a question that they've asked themselves internally as to where do they position proper revised model like the Pro, and how do they then, as you get further into the life cycle, keep supporting the original Switch and the Switch Lite. I think actually the Switch Lite is easier in a sense to support because it's just a handheld only machine, and really as a handheld, it's the power differential between that and the normal Switch is minimal, so it's essentially effectively just the same. So I think that's a bit easier for them because they will at least have, let's call it, two models going forward, one that's significantly more powerful than the other, let's say. But it is a difficulty. Having said that, I mean, Sony and Microsoft are doing it with the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, which even by 2013 standards were pretty weak. So, and they do make it work, and they keep supporting it. So I think you will just get that scenario, which you tend to, let's say 7 or 8 years in, where something's coming out on the Switch Pro and it's really nice and performs well, and something comes out on the Switch Lite and on the original Switch and it's pretty bad, right? Having said that, the big difference between the two, as in Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft, is that Nintendo aren't ever trying to push graphical boundaries in the same way. They're not trying to push Uncharted games on their Switch. Their art styles are very much based around really clean aesthetics that, while very nice to look at, aren't pushing any technical boundaries. So I think they'll have an easier job with it going forward than Microsoft and Sony have had. Where you're actually like, how do you go back to Indy's example of like Forza Horizon 2, where they were just basically like, look, this 360, the 360 version is just going to be complete trash. I mean, I literally watched a video of that the other day where they're driving through a field, because it was in Italy, right? I think it was in Italy. And they're driving through a field, and they've just on the 360 version, they've just stripped out all of the trees, basically all of the trees, just barren landscape. They've just, the compromise is unreal. So I don't think it will be that bad in the future for Nintendo if they go for a proper upgraded model, but it still will be a thing they'll have to adjust to.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all that. I definitely think that's why they kind of that's why I kind of go against the massive upgrade of it. I feel like it's more of a, surface upgrade where it's kind of like a new screen and that kind of thing. And, maybe some slight performance issues, but where it's not going to be a big difference. But I don't want to go into it all again because I've said it all before, but there's definitely going to be some big benefits from it, but maybe more visual, and maybe it's like you say, the kickstand and some technology upgrades maybe, which aren't going to, they don't want disparity between their games or anything like that. I think they want it to be all standardized a bunch across the board. So I think they're going to probably do it in that way. That's my opinion anyway. But I won't say any more because I've said it before.
Cool. I think you pulled a couple of comments as well, Indy. If you
thanks,
don't
buddy.
mind,
Yeah, no worries. One comment from Fastback in the house, my brother. He says, I would think they would like to have a Switch Pro, etc., to launch with Breath of the Wild 2. And then he went on to say, also could be a reason why Metroid Prime is being quiet. So, that's an interesting thought.
It's interesting,
Yeah.
Very plausible.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a good chance that whenever the Breath of the Wild 2 launches is the same day that the Switch Pro or whatever they end up calling it launches. I definitely think there's a good chance of
that. Make a lot of sense, definitely. Yeah, good shout.
So we're expecting some Breath of the Wild 2 bundle, are we, as well?
Yeah, and probably a special
edition.
edition.
Exactly.
Special editions. I mean, they've already got the Zelda Joy-Cons, haven't they? The blue ones that are as horrible as
Sword,
are. They are bloody gorgeous controllers for how good controllers can look.
Yeah, so. I can't justify them, but I would love them.
Pre-ordered, baby.
You got it pre-ordered? Oh, wow.
Honest, any Nintendo stuff they could sell me a turd and I'd probably buy it. So
Yeah, that's the Nintendo promise, isn't it? They just put anything out and they'll know you'll buy it. That's
yeah, you'll complain for about 5 minutes and then you'll be like, go on then. Why not?
Yeah.
Run along. Nintendo scamp, run along.
Is that it for comments, is it, guys?
Yeah, I think that's everything, folks.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all very much, and thank you in the chat as well. I have been seeing a lot of commentary going on. Very much appreciate all your feedback and comments. Great for you to have you all involved. We only have 10 minutes left, so I think this will be a very light last topic. So this one's just a miscellaneous one regarding E3 and some conferences that we have coming up, and other things that we're looking forward to and hope to expect. So I suppose to start off with, we've got the Square Enix show on June the 13th. That's been announced. So their formally announced games have included Babylon's Fall, Life is Strange, True Colors, and they've also got a premiere announcement coming from Eidos Montreal. And the next day, June 14th, we have a 2K show, which has seemingly already leaked and includes a Tiny Tina Borderlands spin-off, a Marvel and XCOM game from Firaxis, and a game described as I can never pronounce his name properly. Cthulhu, is it?
Cthulhu?
Cthulhu, is it?
Cthulhu,
Cthulhu meets Saints Row is apparently another thing. So I suppose just very quickly, just I'm conscious of time. I'll go from top to bottom. Luke, is there any particular other E3 shows coming along apart from obviously the big ones that you're looking forward to? Any particular games that you've heard before that you're looking forward to seeing and hoping to see?
Yeah, I think so. Of the two mentioned, I'll take those, I guess. So I'm really looking forward to the Square Enix one actually, because Babylon's Fall always looked pretty interesting, and it's a platinum game, so I'm always interested in that. It's been underground for a long time, so it'll be interesting to see what it is now. The Eidos Montreal one is, I think everybody knows what that is because they actually announced this. I can't remember if they announced this way back when or if it was just Jason Schreier confirmed what it was. But that's Guardians of the Galaxy game that Eidos Montreal are making.
Yeah,
I've heard about this. Yeah,
out of interest though, Luke, just on that one, mate. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Where are your thoughts on that? Because honestly, I might have been excited for that once upon a time. Then Avengers has come along, and honestly, I really have zero excitement for that announcement. If I'm being perfectly honest, and I wonder how they're feeling about it internally after the seemingly lack of success that Avengers has had.
I think I'm couched in my optimism for it because of the Avengers. So on paper, Eidos Montreal making a Guardians of the Galaxy game sounds fantastic. But on paper, Crystal Dynamics making an Avengers game sounded really good as well.
Yeah.
So, and we all know how that turned out, and it was not good. It depends. For me, it depends on what the game is. Because if they go down this weird games as a service route for that game, as they did Avengers, I'm just not going to be interested in it unless it looks spectacular. Because I don't want that. If, on the other hand, it's kind of a single player, but you drop in, drop out co-op, very story focused, like think of Marvel's Spider-Man on PS4, like Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's got some co-op. That's right up my alley, and I'd love that. But yeah, I totally agree that I'm like, my excitement for it is like, oh, Eidos Montreal Guardians of the Galaxy, and then I'm like, oh yeah, but Avengers. So I'm kind of in between on how that will turn out. I think we'll see. I think like the one weird thing about Square's show, which I found very interesting, is no mention at all of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, I thought that was strange.
Yeah, so and they will have. They've said they have an announcements and surprises there, so it could turn up. But it just seems to me like maybe Sony have gone no. Like we'll have Final Fantasy at whatever our next showcase will be.
That's probably it, really, isn't it? Because the thing is, so Final Fantasy 16's already been announced. Final Fantasy 7 Remake 2 is obviously coming, but not formally announced, I guess. I can't imagine a situation where they have both 16 and 7 Remake 2 in the same show. Sure, but also, I can't see them bringing 7 Remake 2 before bringing back Final Fantasy 16, which we've already seen a little bit of. But if they were going to show Final Fantasy 16, I would have thought they would have said, because it's not a new game. We know it. We've even seen gameplay of it, albeit just small bits, but we've at least seen it. So I imagine the only Final Fantasy thing when they talk about surprises is that rumored or essentially leaked Origins sort of Musou style game, or maybe Souls like game from the Neo team. So I would be. It would be surprising, but also maybe not so much when you think about it, to not have 16 or 7 Remake 2 at the show at all, because as I say, I think Sony have said no. that's ours. We'll have that for maybe later in the year.
Yeah, and Forspoken as well. Which I'm really eager to see more of. But I think out of them all, it's probably. Well, I don't know. I mean, the Origins game sounds like it's pretty far advanced, but Forspoken looked pretty far advanced in of itself. It's apparently been dead for a long time, so you would think maybe again you'd see some more of that. But again, it might be Sony going, "Nope, that's for us." That's they're going to be at our show. But as you say, like, where does like Remake 2 fall into all of this? Because as you say, it's unlikely they want to show that or do much on it before 16 comes out. Nobody knows when 16 is coming out, so. Yeah, it's a weird one. They're sat on this like treasure trove of games, but Sony in the background might be going, yeah, but you can't show any of them until we say so. So it's going to be interesting. And then the only other one that I am quite excited about is the Marvel XCOM game from Firaxis for 2K. That is, I mean, XCOM. I love XCOM so much, and the idea of that, but with Marvel Heroes, sounds fantastic. Hopefully, we'll see that as well. But I'll move it on to Scott.
I think just obviously that I know I interrupted Luke many times there, and nothing really out on the Square side of things interests too much from what they've announced. As I've mentioned, the Guardians of the Galaxy game, because of Avengers, I have zero interest in that. Obviously, it could change my mind. I agree with Luke that if it is maybe something like a more single player, story driven game rather than some games as a service thing, then that might get us back in. But honestly, out the list that you mentioned there, Pucks, the Marvel XCOM is probably the thing that stands out for me as well. I know it's obviously not exactly the same, but I'm really enjoyed Gears Tactics that I played at the beginning of this year, and I think that would be right up my street. But outside of that, I don't care for Borderlands. I don't care for Saints Row. So I don't think I'm really expecting an awful lot from that Take Two thing. And then we'll see what surprises Square have, because obviously, as we've mentioned, they've got a couple of things in the back pocket that they could show if they wanted / allowed.
Yeah, no, definitely, fair enough. Finally, I say I'm aware of time. Indie. I know there's obviously a number of indie-based conferences. I think we've got the Summer Games Fest coming up very soon as well. And I think we also... Did we just had the Guerrilla Collective as well? That just happened? We did
indeed. Yeah, we had the first one. There's one. That was day 1 of 2. So there's a second one on the 12th. Yeah, so lots to look out for, which I keep saying to people. Obviously, people kind of like Tractor Beam or focus on like the Xbox showcase for good reason. It's going to be an awesome show. But there is a lot more going on as well, as you know, you guys were just talking about. But also there's like Devolver have announced their showcase, which I cannot wait for.
That'll be cool.
Which is on the 12th. So that's always absolutely bonkers in a glorious way. The presentation wise, if you've seen one before, you would be transported into a world of craziness, a bit kind of similar to the world of like Psychonauts, but in a much more X-rated way. That's one way of describing it. But yeah, they're always mental in a good way. But the games are also always awesome, and they've promised 5 new game reveals and 2 release date confirmations from it as well, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm hoping for. I mean, I'm thinking that potentially the release date confirmations will be Shadow Warrior 3. I'm thinking. And also Death's Door. I think that will come up with the release date. That's my guess.
Forward to seeing that.
I really hope you're right there, Andy. I really hope you're right there, mate.
Yeah, I think it's a good chance of both those, because they've gone quite a lot of detail last time with Shadow Warrior, and this time around, Death's Door is actually really far into production. They're targeting the 2021 release date, even though it's only recently revealed. But it'll be an awesome game. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, 5 new games to reveal as well. Definitely looking forward to seeing what they've got in that regard, because Devolver are an absolutely awesome publisher of the indie variety. But yeah, like Summer Game Fest is on the 10th. I know that's not technically E3, but I like to think of it all as a whole as the E3 season kind of thing. And I'm really looking forward to that. They've got an amazing lineup of publishers and developers on their list of who they've teamed up with, like Annapurna are on that list, and Devolver are also on that list. Dotemu are on that list, who are doing the new Turtles game, Shredder's Revenge. So you never know, that might come up. Lots of stuff to look forward to. I know we've got a little bit less time, so I'm just making sure I go through a little bit quicker. What else am I looking forward to? Like I say, the other Guerrilla Collective is on the 12th, which will also have that'll have Wholesome Direct attached to it, which is all sort of like cozy sort of games which aren't sort of slashers. Luke probably thinks that's my type of games, but it's not. He knows me really. Ghost Runner, Doom Eternal. Don't forget those, my friend. But there's got games like Spiritfarer in there, Wholesome Direct, which is pretty cool, and it's also Tunic would fall into the Wholesome sort of selection. Don't know if it'll sort of show up, there's no guarantee. But Skatebird is in their list and stuff like that, which looks cool. But would you like me to go into anything else, or I'm just looking for.
If there's anything else you're looking forward to, by all means,
I'm looking forward to the whole thing. To be honest, there's going to be. I won't just go into the whole thing, but just in general, I want people like to really come together as gamers in general, and just. Don't want to be like take the high ground with him, but just enjoy it as a whole. Let's come together. We're gamers, and we all love gaming as a whole. There's no reason to sort of like get fanboy over anything. I know the group here are always awesome anyway, in the chat and everything, so there's no need to worry about that. But like, it's just always funny when people focus on one thing that they want to see at an event, and then if that's there, it's that or bust. And then I always think that's a bad approach. Just go in open-minded and ready to soak up everything as a whole, as you'll get loads of surprises, and likely you'll get new games that you've not even thought about, and hopefully you can be open-minded and let those come in, and you can take them on board and then just enjoy it as a whole. But like, we're all gamers, let's celebrate gaming together is what I feel. But sorry if that sounded a bit preachy, but it's just...
No, definitely. I don't think
very well said, man.
I was going to say, I don't think I could have ended the show on a better comment, to be perfectly honest. I know last year was obviously the first year we didn't have an E3. I know there was obviously a lot of discussions at the time as to, had E3 had its day, etc., etc. And at least in my opinion on this, I think the lack of an E3 kind of shows that there is a need for something like an E3, if it's not E3 directly. Yes. I think it's a great period of time when the conference brings all of these companies together under the same banner. A lot of the big news is coming in similar time frames. I know I am aware that obviously there are other shows that are happening throughout the summer, and obviously PlayStation are no doubt going to do their own thing, probably in July or if not August. But I totally agree. This is a time, awesome. No console wars. We all enjoy our platforms. We had we've said it before, again and again and again on previous shows, that yes, as you say, we are definitely an Xbox focused channel, I should say. We have a lot of Xbox fans in the chat, but you guys in the chat are awesome, and the panel, because you guys love Sega. Sega have a presence this year. I think we're all going to be looking forward to seeing what they have. We had a massive discussion tonight on Nintendo as well, which I know we're all big fans of. I really enjoyed that myself. That took basically up to 45 minutes to my own surprise. So I'm really happy we covered it. And happy gaming for everyone. And I hope whatever we're all looking forward to is whether it comes your way or not, fingers crossed. But I'm sure we'll be discussing it very soon. But with that, I think that marks the end of the show. So thank you all very much, chat, for being here. We've definitely had a blast. Indy's signed off with a fantastic message,
thank you,
which all abide by. And and I hope you all enjoyed the show. So panel. Luke, have a good show tonight.
Oh yeah, always great show, and particularly having Indy on. The paragon of family-friendly entertainment. No, it's always amazing chatting with Indy. He's awesome, and obviously, Bugs and Scott, you know how much affinity I have for both of you as well, and Father Flap, who is missed by his absence. Praise be to him. Really cool. And it was nice to do some kind of topics. I guess getting Flapaways meant we could have a Nintendo topic. So more of that, Flap. It was awesome. So really happy to be here and chat also.
No worries at all. And yourself, Scott. I know we say this every week, but I hope you enjoyed the show. I know we definitely went in depth on our Nintendo this time around.
Yeah, definitely loved in that. It's funny Luke mentioned it there. It is seemingly when Flap can't make it for whatever reason that it's like a Nintendo takeover of the show, isn't it? All of a sudden, but no, it's been awesome. I really enjoyed the topics, and I just want to say, Indy, I genuinely couldn't have said it better myself. So that it was a great way to sort of finish up the show, Indy.
Thank you,
And
bro.
I'm just super excited for next week. I'm still in my 30s. Well, sorry, I'm now in my 30s, and E3 is just it's like bloody Christmas, isn't it? Like it's such an exciting time of the year.
Yeah.
If you enjoy the medium of video games, so hopefully, the thing is, over this next week there's going to be something for everyone. There's not going to be one person who enjoys video games that isn't going to be excited about something, and that's awesome. So yeah, Indy said it best. I'm not going to try and repeat that, but yeah, super excited for E3, and obviously next week's show as well. We're going to be getting together like 30 minutes after the Xbox and Bethesda conference finishes. So next week's show is going to be fantastic, I think.
Oh, definitely. And last but definitely not least, our special guest, Indie Gamer. Thank you very much for coming on. Although I know you said prior to the show that you you actually asked to come on, which is fantastic. And it was actually surprise news to all of us. It kind of came out of the blue, but in a good way. I'm really happy you came on.
Went to church of Father Flap and confessed, and he said, "I will sort you out with a position on the show."
And coincidentally, he's then not here, so
yeah. And then I murdered him and got the place.
Yeah.
It's getting a bit dark now for me.
No, but thank you very much for coming on, and I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed your time here.
Absolutely loved it, and I always love coming on. I think it's the second time I've been on this show, and but I've had many times hanging out with you guys, chatting games. Like you've come on mine a lot, and obviously Puxy, you're regular, and pretty much all of you guys are regulars on my show. So it's just I love you guys. You're fantastic. I love what you do on Green Pass. It's so great, and an absolute honor to be on and hang out with you today and chat. E3 and just be a guest. Sometimes it's hard being a host. You've done an amazing job, Huxley, at that, because I know you've taken over the reins a little bit there. So, yeah, really good job on that, buddy.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So I always feel nervous doing this. I don't know why, because I speak on this every week, but I just don't do the primary speaking role. And being in that position, I don't know why, I just sometimes feel a bit nervous, but I feel like I'm getting more comfortable the more I do it. So I hope it came across very well to everyone.
You do an awesome job, mate. You really do an awesome job, yeah.
No, thank you very much.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a lot harder than people think, because you're thinking about so many different things, you know what I mean? You think about what's coming up as well as what you're saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why I've not been active at all in chat, because I'm just too busy trying to focus, I guess is the right word, is it?
Yeah. But you didn't see, there was no seams, if that was a good way of explaining it. You were perfect, my friend. Great job. And
you did well, dude.
Puxley, awesome. Luke, we love the banter, but you're also an awesome friend of mine, my friend. I love it. We've got a lot of good stuff in common too. And obviously, Scott, you're just the same for you, my friend. Absolutely love what you're about, buddy. You're such a great group here. It is absolutely awesome show you're running, and I hope it keeps growing, which it definitely will. And awesome chat. Thank you very much for hanging with us. And if you wanted to find myself, I do focus on the indie games variety of gaming, just to spread that love for that, the smaller games, and there's some amazing games out there, so definitely come on by if you fancy that. My channel is on YouTube, YouTube.com/The Indie Gamer, all one word, and on Twitter it is indie_gamer_01. And thank you so much again for having me on, even though I forced my way on. Thank you to Flap for giving me that invite as well. It's been amazing. Cheers.
No worries at all. And just before I do finally sign off, just to say, next week's show is still planned to go ahead at 8 p.m, same as every week, and it's going to be our most exciting one yet, I believe, because we have the Xbox/Bethesda showcase happening at 6 p.m. UK time for a 90-minute show, so that's going to be ending roughly 7:30, of course. And half an hour later, while it's still fresh in our minds, and we're all going to be super excited, I hope, from what we've seen, and we're going to be having lots of discussions of what we've witnessed. So please tune in again next week to meet us all there. All of the GPG crew will be present at that time. Flap will be taking the reins again. And until then, I hope you all have a good week. Enjoy yourself. Stay safe. And until then, we shall see you next time.